Good morning. I'm Mike Neal, President and CEO of the Tulsa Regional Chamber. Thank you for joining us for our business support series. This is actually episode 11, Making Tough Decisions. Our business support series offers insight on how your organization can effectively respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. There's an area where our chamber, our team can be of assistance to you. Please feel free to reach out to any of us. Our conversation today will be on making tough decisions during a time of crisis. Our speakers will discuss how to adapt to changing circumstances to ensure long-term survival for your company, management team, and all of us. A recording of today's webinar will be posted on the Chamber's website this afternoon. But before we get to our speakers, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank our sponsors of the Business Support Series. They are Security Bank, Expert Ready, Stride Bank, and Lux Enterprises. And we're pleased to have Frauke Quiroga, CEO and managing partner of Lux Enterprises, and also an outstanding chamber and also board member today. And I'd now like to pass the microphone over to Frauke to introduce our speakers. And if you could all please mute yourself if you are not speaking. Frauke?
Thank you, Mike. It's an honor to join everyone today and introduce our speakers. Rachel James is the director of Greenheck Group's Tulsa campus. She joined Greenheck in January 2019 to lead the manufacturing company's new Tulsa campus, which is projected to grow more than 500 employees in the next 5 years. Her focus at Greenheck includes community relations, strategic partnerships, and employer of choice initiatives. Her job has pivoted in the last month as she also served as the member of Greenheck's COVID-19 response team. Rachel has more than 15 years of experience in public relations, leadership consulting, and communications for nonprofit, education, and business sectors. Aaron Fulkerson is the partner and chief development officer at Schnake Turnbo Frank. He joined Schnake Turnbo Frank in the spring of 2010 and became partner in February 2012. Aaron leads the firm's rapidly growing management consulting division. STF's practice focus on leadership and strategy. Aaron is a Predictive Index certified partner, Myers-Briggs certified practitioner, a Berkman certified professional, and holds a coaching certificate from the Association for Talent Development. He brings more than 25 years of experience ranging from Fortune 500 companies to small businesses and government organizations. Thank you both for joining us. I'll now let you each share some of your changes and tough decisions that you've been forced to make, starting with Rachel.
Hi there, everybody. First, just a little bit about Greenheck Group. We're a family-owned company. We're headquartered in a small town in Wisconsin. We manufacture air handling equipment for commercial buildings like restaurants, hospitals, data centers, apartment buildings. We have just almost 4,000 employees in the United States and some in Mexico and India as well. 150 of those employees are right here in our newest location here in Tulsa. We are deemed an essential business, and I have countless stories and examples of how our employees are making some products that are going to pop-up hospitals and other COVID response needs. So it's very cool for our company to be able to have that sort of an impact right now. The good news for our company and the communities, including Tulsa in which we do business, is our customers continue to need us. And what that means is we can continue to provide jobs to our employees. There have been, though, some hard decisions in the past 5 weeks and a lot of planning for a future that really nobody is completely certain about right now. So I think probably all of us could say our traditional response playbooks didn't help a lot in this situation. We had to be creative. We can't be afraid to reach out to our networks and see what others are doing and what other resources they have. I know I, for one, and a lot of other folks have joined webinars and Zoom meetings like this where we're really sharing ideas so that we can help everybody. Early on, so in early March, we pulled together a dedicated COVID-19 response team. And we have 9 sub-teams, which seems excessive, but I'll tell you about those in a minute. We knew we needed a team that could work with speed and flexibility. And we knew this was going to be a dynamic situation, especially in March. Things were changing every single day. So we needed a team that could make decisions, whether those be tactical or strategic, and be able to quickly go to our executive team, get final approval when needed. But for the most part, we were given the ability to make decisions. So I talked about those 9 sub-teams. I think we started with 4 or 5, and we've evolved and added as we've needed those. Sub-teams could be anything from safety and hygiene to operations continuity planning to people interactions, meeting, visitors, different things like that. Our sub-teams work independently, and then they report back to the response team with recommendations or maybe a new process they've put into place or something like that. So the mission really is to research. Those sub-teams are researching a lot. They're consulting, especially on the safety side and the hygiene side. We were consulting with our local health departments, building relationships as fast and as early on as we could with those health departments, and looking at CDC and WHO info as well. We were vetting options, making recommendations to the response team, and then very quickly able to go with whatever those changes were going to be. We've been really successful, but not everything we've done has been perfect. Not everything we've done has been easy or popular either. Early on, we were putting some policies and some changes into place. No visitors, which was tough for us. We host a lot of tours. We have a lot of folks coming to meet us, a lot of different reasons why we might need vendors on campus, things like that. And so we were having to hang up signs, and in my view, unfriendly to say you can't come in here. And that felt very weird in the beginning. Now it seems like kind of, just the norm, the new norm. It's very much in our values to gather people together. So having to cancel meetings, having to cancel leadership classes, celebrations, things like that, that connected to our values was tough. And then not having things in shared spaces like vending and being able to use microwaves for lunches and things like that. So a lot of those that seemed a little excessive and were hard in the beginning have helped protect and keep safe all of our employees. And I think a lot of our employees now feel very comfortable and very good about coming to work because we did put those kinds of things into place. I will say a big part of us being able to execute on this and maintain the trust with our employees and the confidence that we were making good decisions as their employer was communication. So another one of our subcommittees for our response team is dedicated to communication. We really as a company have doubled down on how much we're communicating. We've had to launch some things prematurely that we've been talking about for a while communications wise, but we wanted to make sure we're transparent with decisions we're making, we're giving them the why, and we're also providing the success stories along the way that can let us as employees and teammates feel good about the work we're doing and celebrate the impact we're making right now. So the other kinds of things that thankfully we haven't had to pull the trigger on, but those things that maybe employees or partners don't see are the things that we've been planning for. And I think in this situation, you have to look at plans for situation A, B, C, all the way through Z. Because so much is so unknown, not just about today, but a month from now, 6 months from now. And so we really tried to look around the corner and make plans based on that. But right now it was, what if this, then this? So with all those scenarios, we had to consider what would we need to do? How would it work? What's that process look like? Who would be on which list when you're having to make decisions about employees and jobs? How would we communicate to our employees, our customers, our partners, vendors, all those folks? And then how to be ready when you need to go back to 100%. So everybody keeps talking about when we get back to normal, and we don't know what that normal looks like. But if you're forced to let go of some folks now, how do you bring them or others on when you're ready, right? So we've planned for all those different scenarios. And it's those plans that really you hope you never need. But our belief was, let's take the time and be strategic and think through what we could have to do later, so that we're not making those decisions under pressure or under stress. So any of those kinds of things could look like, shutdown days or furloughs or layoffs. What if we had to close a plant? What if we have an employee who tests positive for COVID-19? Does that mean we have to close? What does that look like? Looking at low performers and things like that, if you had to make cuts. So there's a lot of different things that I think a lot of employers, a lot of companies are looking at right now and making plans for. I've mentioned just a few of those that we've had to outline, but I really believe that the most important thing that we did was dedicate a group that could come together, have all of the data, have all of the discussions, and be able to make those recommendations and move quickly when we need to.
Thank you, Rachel. Aaron.
Thank you, Mike, and the Chamber first for hosting this support series. I think that in times like these, we have to do everything we can to provide support to our local businesses, because I think we're getting a firsthand lesson in how critical our businesses are to our livelihood. So I'm really grateful to be a part of this, and I'm grateful that the Chamber is making this investment of time and resources. I think the thing that I'd like to talk about today is what I see my clients facing in terms of their tough decisions. And there are tough decisions all around us. There is nobody who had a COVID-19 global pandemic playbook. Many of us have had crisis playbooks, and this is obviously, I think, the closest example you can draw from some of those things. But in terms of making tough decisions, we do have some guidelines that, even though this is a unique situation, I think still can help businesses. And this is, large publicly traded companies all the way down to a very small business and everyone in between. And I think a few of those points would be to, first of all, practice self-care, meaning you are making, as a leader, you are making really critical choices. And these choices involve people's livelihoods. They involve your livelihood in many situations. They involve the very survival of your business in these kinds of crazy times. And you need to make sure that your decision-making is state-of-the-art. So what that means is whatever you need to do to make sure that you are physically, mentally, and emotionally in a good place, you need to take time to do that, because then that's going to put you in a position of making good decisions for people who are counting on you. The last thing you want is to be making decisions in a compromised state. So I'm pushing everyone to make sure that you are taking care of yourself so that you can take care of everyone who's counting on you. Another bit of advice is to be, we always give advice to leaders to be transparent. That is even more critical now. The fact is, you can't downplay this situation. Everyone knows how bad it is. Everyone knows that the world is kind of ground to a halt around us. And if you do anything other than provide complete honesty, then you're going to lose credibility as a leader. It's going to feel disingenuous. So I think the more you can communicate about real information and real possibilities, I think that will make your stock go up and will help you make good decisions for your people. So there's no downplaying this. You have to lean into it. We're telling people, leaders, to be very present, more so than maybe you were previously. Over communicate. We're all kind of in this weird way isolated from each other. So, people that you didn't speak to on a regular basis, maybe employees or clients or customers, these are the folks that you should be reaching out to on a more regular basis and connecting with. Because that may not be in your nature. There are many of us who are introverts versus extroverts. And something that's been interesting about this time is I've seen a lot of introverts feeling too cut off. And it's very easy to jump to this conclusion that, well, people, especially leaders who are introverted, this is their nirvana. They get to not be around people and they're just doing their thing. But that's not really what most introverts are looking for. Most introverts want to be around people, but they want to just draw energy from people when it suits them or when it's good for them. They don't necessarily want to be cut off or isolated. So even if you or others who you work with are, labeled as introverted, don't necessarily think that that means that you don't need to communicate, because the fact is, people really need to do lots of connection with each other. In terms of business decisions in these kinds of times, there's some overall advice that we typically give leaders, and I'll say, I know that this advice can be difficult because, again, we're talking about people's livelihoods, so I don't say any of this lightly. But if you're looking at making organizational changes or cuts or compressions, whether that's people or resources or overhead or any of those things, overall, we advise leaders to go a little deeper than you think you need to. The last thing you want to do is make tough decisions and compress your spending to still be on wobbly knees. You really need to cut so that you can be healthy in the new normal, because the number one thing that I think your employees and your customers need from you is to be healthy during this. So don't just cut enough, cut even a little bit more than that, so that you have some headroom and some breathing room, especially in case this recovery takes longer than maybe we're thinking right now. I would also say one correction is better than dripping it out over time, because if you have ever been a part of an organization that is making consistent reductions over time, that just erodes morale. It keeps everyone on edge. And so we're a bigger fan of, fewer changes rather than more. So anyway, those are just some overall bits of advice that we're giving leaders. And again, what I would say is, if you're a leader making tough decisions, you have to internalize the reality that this is not your fault. A lot of times when we're having to make these cuts, we're ashamed, we're embarrassed, we feel like we've let everyone down. No one could have seen this coming, and no one did see this coming. So we are all in the same boat here, and we all just have to respond accordingly. So I think I'll pause there and kick it back to Mike.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Aaron. Thank you, Rachel. We don't have time for live questions, but we have a couple that have been submitted in advance, and I'll ask both of our guests. The first one really has to do with, almost every business has had to adapt their processes and their business models. What lessons from this crisis have you learned from your company, Aaron, in your case, your clients, that you think will be important to retain once things begin to return to normal in some sense over the months to come?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's no question that some of what we're learning and doing right now is going to stick long term. Certainly the virtual working arrangements. If there was anyone who was on the fence before about whether that could work, I think we all know now that it can. And so I would expect that there's going to be some of that sticks. In terms of other business processes, maybe there's going to be some businesses who try to have more of a developed crisis plan, something that they can go to respond in these kinds of situations. And I think that's probably really smart. And then the last just bit of advice I would give is any organization that, I know right now we're thinking of survival and we need to get through this until the wheels start turning again. We're all in that same boat. But businesses who just try to do less with less as a strategic response don't have a sharp recovery. That businesses who do less but pivot and are very thoughtful about what's going to be different going forward and how should I change my comeback in order to suit, are very successful with that comeback. So, I think that, saying that now we have an opportunity is a little glib, but this isn't an opportunity I think any of us would have chosen. But you do have a moment when you need to think about, am I going to, when the wheels start turning again, am I going to come back the same way, or do I need to maybe do something a little bit differently? So there are some strategic choices to be making.
Thanks, Aaron. Rachel?
I think there's a few different things. I will reiterate what Aaron said about being able to work from home, work virtually. So that's not a lot of what we were doing before. As a matter of fact, one of the things we had to do was test out what working remotely would do to our system as a company if we had people all over the country doing that en masse. So I think there will be a lot more of that. The business continuity planning and having all of those scenarios ironed out. I fully believe some of these response sub-teams focused on different things will live on because we found a lot of value in that. And it may be, I may be a little bit biased because I'm a communications professional and that's my background, but I think all of the things that we've done to over communicate, as Aaron said, with our employees has gotten really great feedback. We've built a sense of pride. When morale could be low, it's a way to lift all of us up. And so I think a lot of the things that we've done to communicate in the different ways and formats that we have found, especially for the large majority of our workforce that don't have email. I mean, they're not sitting at a computer every day. So I do believe a lot of that will continue to live on.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Aaron. Trust is more important, I think, now during a crisis than ever. And I guess my question will be, how do you maintain trust among your team in the midst of fear, financial uncertainty, layoffs, and certainly everything we hear and read in the media every moment of the day?
I can take that one. I think, and I don't want to be redundant, but communication is key. And so, any different scenario we've planned for, what is an essential business? What will we do if someone, is tested positive, or, why do we continue to be open? And being able to tell those stories of the things and the products that really making a difference right now. So communication has been key. One of the things that we do is in a lot of communications research that I've done in different organizations, your number one, anyone in a company, your number one source of information is your supervisor. Whether or not he or she is a great communicator, being able to provide you information when you go and you have a question, that is key, that's critical. And so throughout this, anything that we thought a question that could come up from someone at any level, in any different situation, we wanted our supervisors, those who directly have folks that they supervise, had the answers, because with morale kind of on edge at any company anywhere right now, and with so many questions, you wouldn't want to ask your supervisor something and I don't know, I'm the last one anybody tells, and I don't know what our plan would be for that. That doesn't make you feel really good at the end of the day. So one of our big trust builders is to make sure that our folks, when someone approaches them with a question, they have an answer.
Thanks, Rachel. Aaron?
Yeah, I'll just have a quick piggyback. Leaders like Rachel a lot of times have good instincts about these things, but not all of us do. And what I would say is one of the best ways you can maintain trust during these times is to be very honest and show them that you care. Those seem like they're simple things, but they're more important now than ever. If they feel like you're smoke screening things or you're redirecting, that's not going to build trust. And if they think that you don't care about them and their career and their livelihoods, then that's not going to build trust. So, be present, over communicate, be truthful, and show them that you care.
Thank you, Aaron. We only have a few minutes remaining, and so I'll pass it over to Frauke Quiroga to ask our final question. Frauke?
Thank you. Aaron, I particularly appreciate your insight on introverts. What would both of you advise in terms of the extroverts?
Yeah, I'll take this one first and then let Rachel follow up. But I think it was kind of an interesting dynamic. I saw many of the extroverts who I coach when this first happened for the first couple of weeks, loving being at home. And that seems a little counterintuitive because you think, well, extroverts, they would be dying because they're not out connecting with people. But I find that a lot of extroverts their extroversion drives them so much that to frankly have a break from that and a breather from being an extrovert was welcomed and nice. But I think the shine is worn off, and now extroverts are feeling antsy. So find ways to connect with people. It's that simple. I see so many Zoom happy hours happening. We're doing them in our company regularly. Do things to get outside in a way that is still, practicing good social distancing. We've been encouraging people to just spend some time outside in your backyard. Just get out into the sun and don't be necessarily holed up the whole time. And just connect with people as frequently as possible. And that will scratch some of that itch. It won't be the same, but I think it will help people get through the time.
I think the only thing that I would add, as someone who's extroverted, it is about the connections. And it's funny how your calendar kind of clears out when you're not going to meetings. So I've tried to fill that up, a few days a week, having a FaceTime lunch. I thought that would be awkward in the beginning, but it's the greatest thing if you haven't had FaceTime lunch with your friends yet. But it was also about, I think I've built stronger connections with some folks. It's that times of crisis we pull together. And so, I want to make sure that the team members that I manage, I'm checking in with them and making sure that they have what they need. So I think a lot of it is about building connections. And I want to go back to something that Aaron said earlier. And I know this from Aaron, because we used to work together, but self-care is very important, very, very important. At the beginning of all of this, I deal with anxiety like a lot of people do. And so it was tough. I was having physical reactions and just the worry was taking over. And so being at home, the benefit and the thing that I've tried to really focus on, the positive side of that, is having that time to focus on self-care. I could say that I'm busier than I've ever been since I took the position at Greenheck. But I have that ability to take a minute, take the dogs for a walk. I'm cooking more. I don't know what that is. Really, my extroversion is having to find different outlets. But I think it's the good thing that extroverts can do and introverts can help us with is being able to look at the bright side of things and just share that with each other.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Aaron. One thing that Rachel did mention is that she's also become a haircutting expert. Aaron and me
So bad.
that we need her help, and that we may need her help. We probably do need her help. And so, Rachel, we may be coming to visit you. We'll appropriately social distance. But thank you both, and thank you, Frauke, for joining us today. Again, I'd like to thank Expert Ready, Lux Enterprises, Security Bank, and Stride Bank for their support of this business support series. Anyone that came in late, called in late, joined the webinar late, if you'd like to share this webinar recording, will be posted on our Chamber's website later this afternoon. Our next business support series webinar will be this Thursday, April the 23rd from 11 to 11:30. We'll focus on the importance of prioritizing mental and emotional health during the COVID-19 pandemic. You can register for the webinar on the tulsachamber.com/events on that site. Hope you can join us then. Hope you can join us every Tuesday and Thursday. And again, I want to say a special thank you to Rachel and Aaron, who did a fabulous job. They're always there, always here for us, always here for our members. And we appreciate fabulous partners such as them. In the meantime, if we can be of any assistance to you at all, we're all learning to do things differently. We had our first chamber board meeting with 96 individuals yesterday virtually. In our 120-year history, first ever virtual meeting. We had the governor, we had all the healthcare CEOs. Roger Ramsar did a masterful job of running that meeting. We're all doing these things differently. We're learning a ton from them. And I think as we continue to focus on how we can help one another, how we can help our businesses, how we can help our employees, and how we can help this community, we'll be better. We will recover much quicker, and we're excited and that Tulsa really does have an extremely bright future. So in the meantime, if we can help you, please feel free to reach out to me personally. Please feel free to reach out to any of our chamber member team, and we look forward to seeing you again on Thursday. Have a great day.